that's not fun. Let's start you off right here. Yesterday, more gun violence across metro Atlanta. One scene unfolded in Henry County along Howell Drive, this near Locust Grove and just east of Cole Reservoir. The 11Alive storm tracker was over the scene as law enforcement tried to piece together what happened. And we're told that one person, 17-year-old Sean Bunkley, was shot and killed. No word on what led to his death. 3 people were in custody after a drive-by shooting in Clayton County. 2 people were injured in the gunfire. This was at the Bridgewater and Mount Zion apartment complex. We're working to find out the victim's condition and what exactly led to the shooting. Witnesses tell us that the shooting happened in front of a child. All this on top of the violence that we saw over the weekend in Fulton County. In just matters of a few days, we saw a mass shooting in the city, and Grady Hospital tells us that they treated 47 gunshot victims between Thursday and Monday. And while there's still questions surrounding why all these acts of gun violence took place, they come while experiencing sweltering heat. Boy, it was hot over the last couple of days. A 2023 study from Emory University examined incidents that happened between 2025 and 2021. It found the odds of a fatal police shooting rose by 3% if the daily maximum outdoor temperature rose by 9 degrees Fahrenheit. Wow. The strongest example of these were when victims were armed over the age of 45, and the incidents happened outdoors. All right, back with us this morning is Professor Thaddeus Johnson from Georgia State's Department of Criminal Justice and Criminology. He is joining us this morning. Good morning to you, Thad.
Good morning, good to see you.
Yeah, welcome back to the show, man. All right, talk to me about this, man. You know, when we were in the field, we did departments, when you were in the field, you did departments planning differently, hotter weekends, you know, led to more violence, that kind of thing. What is it with the temperature and people with gun violence around here?
No, thank you for also including police officers in the conversation, you know, because citizens and police, they're dealing with the same thing out in this hot sun. And what we do know about the hot temperatures is that when temperatures spike, people are out and about more. They're bumping into each other, and perhaps tempers will run hotter. People don't know each other's boundaries, particularly you have a lot of churn and change with new people in our city, both residents and living. Then think about the lack of supervision for juveniles compared to during the school year and things of that nature. And this heat really ramps up aggression. You know, it impacts our body's fight or flight chemicals, so even small conflicts can explode into violence. And I will say, you know, we see this in prisons as well. We also see this in public housing and in your urban island where things can be a little bit warmer, a little bit denser, and have less AC. And so the bottom line is that it's not the only factor, but it can actually add irritability and some biological factors into the play that really leads to violence. And of course, you throw alcohol and guns into play that kind of lifts the equation as well.
I was alluding to the fact earlier that you were a police officer. Folks may not know that as they're watching. Was there ever an incident where you could recall where the extreme heat caused more of a challenge when you were out on the force?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, first of all, we have our uniforms on. We have a ballistic vest. We probably have about 10 to 15 pounds of gear on, right? And even when I was a bike patrol officer. And even in those extreme temperatures, we had to take more breaks. We had to be more strategic with our calls. We had to try to not be short-tempered and short with our citizens, but also thinking about our exposure and their exposure for health reasons. And so it can be a real challenge if you have to get into a foot chase. It can be really challenging, or not to mention if you have a vehicle that doesn't have the best AC, that can be a logistic challenge as well. So officers are really impacted, and we really have to watch our aggression, have to watch our temperament, particularly in those situations, and monitor how the heat has impacted us.
You know, really didn't think about that, the stress on both sides. Obviously, the fighting that's going on outside or folks that's getting frustrated by the heat and they're messing around with guns. You guys have to think about that as well. Didn't really think about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we start thinking about, you know, when these, we have more liberal gun laws in places, you know, over the last couple of years, you know, we have to treat every incident like it could potentially be an armed incident. And so even how we approach citizens may be a little bit different now than it was when I was addressing these things. But you absolutely know that when you're out in the summer and there's a big party or there's a big event in the city, like we saw in Edgewood, there may be alcohol involved, there may be strangers involved, and we know there may also be guns in those vehicles. So that makes the policing job a little bit different than how we may even approach situations compared to maybe 20 years ago.
So what's the approach? What's the best approach when temperatures get this hot, right? And you have an incident out there. How do you approach a situation like that?
Well, Well, first of all, if you're a citizen, you just want to recognize that if alcohol is around, if you're in a parking lot in an area, oftentimes if you're inside a building or establishment, we would expect to be safe with security and things there. And as you mentioned in your particular study, that it was when things are outside that it was most common. And so I think, having an extra focus on these events, or if you get wind of parties and things. Also, if there are places, make sure you have hydration stations for your officers and for people walking up and down the street. And the truth be told, there's no magic bullet. You have to keep doing the things that help drive crime down in the first place. Group intervention models like Cure Violence. You can have greening and cooling stations, particularly in your hottest blocks. So remember, most of the time, these incidents are clustered in the same neighborhoods over and over and over again. And so we can engage with greening and cooling, tree canopies, shading. If you have public housing, make sure that we have ACs there. If you have prison detention centers, make sure that they also have AC and reliable fans in there, because we've seen misconduct and violence go up in these facilities as well when the temperature goes up outside. And we cannot forget about them, both those inside and those working there.
Good points, very good points. We're going to make you chief for a day to get those things done. Professor Thaddeus Johnson with Georgia State, thanks so much for joining us, and thanks so much for your insight, man. Really appreciate it.